in near future, would you be open to supporting any clause in the aid to Israel that is contingent upon not building any more settlements and also not blocking any aid and electricity and water to Gaza?
I am open, but I tell you, it's very challenging for people who don't know enough about some of the more precise technical things that are going on in countries that they've never been to, in areas that they really don't know much about, but they do know about principles and practices, and they do know about what is humane and what is inhumane. They do know about treating somebody fair and do unto others the way you'd have them do unto you. We know that, and we may not know all that's going on the East Bank of what all of that means, but we do know what is good and what is bad, and we know what is fair, what is honest, and what is just. So the technical piece of the territorial arrangement, I don't know enough about it, where I would feel like I'm making a rational decision based upon what goes on. Like I discuss poverty with a lot of people who are experts on economics and so forth. And much of what I know about poverty is I see it every day. I talk to people every day who don't have enough of anything. I get hit on every day by people wanting to get me to help them bury somebody that they don't have enough money, or because they didn't have any insurance, or to help them make sure they get their food stamps because they don't have the money. So I feel more comfortable answering them sometimes. But I think the question is a very legitimate one, and I thank you for it. Maybe someone else before we end will have a good answer for that. So thank you, and I'll go to Alexandra Ross.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you. My name is Alex. I'm a Jewish constituent in your district, and there have been many questions, and I would just like to add my support to the resolution calling for a ceasefire. When I was young, my great aunt used to cover her work camp tattoo with a Band-Aid. Once she even tried to burn it off on the stove, and I was always taught never again, never again. And now is the time where I must stand up and say never again for anybody. And we must act now to save innocent lives in Gaza. So, you mentioned the Old Testament, and I stand here before you to beg for a ceasefire, not despite my Judaism, but because of what it taught me. Leviticus 19:16 taught me, do not stand idly by as your neighbor's blood is shed. So thank you so much for listening, and I really appreciate this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there are groups who believe that they've had things happen to them and to their group and to their race or ethnic entity. And they have taught themselves to say, never again will they be caught off guard or unprotected. And that's a big part of the philosophy and the teaching that they have taught themselves. Now I'd like to go to Mr. Aaron Lee Johnson.
Thank you, Congressman Danny Davis. And I also want to thank Mr. Arnold for your service for the country. I would like to do this town hall because I want to see what issues are pressing with the country and with the city of Chicago and Illinois in general, which you touch upon a number of issues which I haven't really thought about, like poverty, childhood poverty, or the gun issue. But I have looked at the issue of immigration. And I was in the military in 1996, and they had an enlistment bonus of around $100,000, or up to $100,000. And I served with soldiers that had different citizenships from different countries that were in the U.S. Army. And what I was wondering is, what if you partner with Chicago, like Chicago partners with the U.S. military, and give these immigrants enlistment bonuses? They would get food, shelter, clothing from the military, plus their enlistment bonus would help their families. I see a lot of people on the street that have children, they have wives or husbands, and that enlistment bonus would go to help them get shelter, like in an apartment or something. And I was just kind of throwing that out there. I've talked to a few other people about it. They said, hey, that might be a good idea. And I'm not sure if it would work, but I just thought I'd throw that out to you.
Well, let me thank you for that, because in many instances, those are practices. I've spoken with a number of middle-aged gentlemen who enlisted in the military as a way, when they were young, of law enforcement saying, to keep you out of trouble, we're going to let you go into the military, because we think what you really need is a code of discipline to learn how to be more disciplined. And they've indicated in almost every instance that they did go to the military, that they were allowed in rather than being sent to a correctional institute or a juvenile delinquency institution. And they did learn discipline a different way. And they say that was the best thing that happened to them. And they have served their time in the military, learned what they learned, got out, and have led productive lives. I've also run into people, for example, it is difficult recruiting African Americans in many instances to join law enforcement agencies. And there have been some instances where individuals have said to me that they went into law enforcement as sort of an alternative. Well, judges, I don't know that they have the same option of sending a person to the military as opposed to the juvenile detention, whatever, if they've disenfranchised or committed something that could be against the law. But there are many conversations like yours where people are recommending that as a possible alternative to young teenagers who've reached military age, that be used. But the military pretty much wants you to be a very solid person as well. They don't want problem individuals coming into the military either. So thank you for your recommendation and suggestion. I hear it a lot, and I appreciated it very much. We're going to go to Cassandra Braxton.
having me, Congressman Davis. I just want to touch on like one thing you said, maybe about just providing like a quality of life for the immigrants coming from different countries where we haven't experienced the same trauma or backgrounds, but yet we are citizens of the United States, citizens of Chicago, Illinois, whether we were brought here by boats or ancestors from slavery, we should be prioritized just as citizens. You know, respect and blessings to the situation, the wars that's going on in Ukraine and Russia and Israel. But we too, as a people, have been just like African Americans have been suffering from all type of restrictions and policies and laws that keep us in prison, and we have not addressed that issue. And I'm a Chicago State student for criminal justice, which don't know if I want to be a police officer or pay money for LSAT tests or law school and everything that I would like to go into. It's always another challenge. So I get an associate's degree. I want to be a probation officer, but I need to go back to school and accumulate more debt for a bachelor's degree to become a probation officer. So also just wanted to address the college student debt, and for urban people, because I have friends that came from Kenya on track scholarships, are stuck in majors where they cannot get out of. They can't change their major, but they can't drop out of school or do anything else because they're here on some type of voucher program. Yet I have like $30,000 in debt from junior college, and then I'm gonna graduate with more debt, and I don't have any access to any debt waivers, whatever with Biden's program, to decrease the debt.
Well, let me thank you. You sound like a great student. I also attended Chicago State University and earned a master's degree there. And the fellow who was my main instructor was in charge of criminal justice stuff. He was a psychologist. We also
I think someone needs to mute their phone and let Congress Denny continue.
Yeah, I was just congratulating Cassandra for being a student at Chicago State. I've been able to bring millions of dollars to them for some of their programming. And I am also organizing what is being called a TBI caucus. And one of the reasons is that Chicago State has asked me if I would do that. And we are announcing that this week coming up. But I also would like for you to know that a person who called me the other day who had just gotten a letter saying that $218,000 of her student loan debt, she is now a physician, has been canceled. And so President President Biden is working as we are working to seriously reduce or get rid of the student loan debt for millions of people in this country. And the president even attempted to use executive order to do some of that, even though we couldn't get it passed in the House of Representatives. But the United States Supreme Court would not allow him to do it. And of course, elections determine to a real degree who gets put on the Supreme Court. So I just remind us all of that. I think Dennis Garrett would be next.
Thank you, Congressman Dennis.
Thank you, Congressman Davis. And you touched on some of the points I wanted to raise as others brought their questions to you. I do want to come back to what Dr. Arnold, colleague of mine, mentioned in terms of holding the other countries accountable. Do you think you can introduce? Would you be interested and do you think that his suggestion is workable in terms of a legislation to introduce some measure of or a way to hold these other countries accountable that allow their citizens to, for whatever reason, their citizens are coming to this country. How could we? That seems so simple that there's something that could work. I'm definitely interested in that. And so if you can address that matter, I mean that would cover a lot, because what the immigration issue is doing is we're not focusing on other issues. For example, as we talk about the immigration issue and also the Israeli Palestinian conflict, there's no discussion on what's going on in the Sudan with the crisis over in the Sudan, where people of color are suffering from the oppression of the Arab majority over there. And with respect to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I think it's important to mention that the leadership over there, recent leadership, bears responsibility. As he called the Eritreans, these are black Israelites over there, he calls them a threat. So certainly, if he's seeing the Jewish population of the Eritreans as a threat, certainly he's seeing Palestinian citizens as a threat. So that was my comment. But can you come back to Dr. Arnold's suggestion in terms of legislation to hold them accountable, to hold these countries accountable for the immigration problems we're facing here? Thank you.
Well, let me say that enforcement of international law is very difficult and very challenging. And that's why it really takes negotiation and agreement. And that's why organizations like NATO and other groups have formed in terms of internationalization and trying to get countries to agree. If you can get them to agree, you can make things happen. But enforcement is a different thing. I'm saying you can work around. That's why it's called diplomacy, diplomatic relationships. And I must confess that I have spent time with groups and in many other countries. I've been to Eritrea. I've been to Ethiopia. I've experienced the war that's been going on with Ethiopia and Eritrea from time to time. Sometimes it'll ray up, sometimes they're at peace, and other times they're at war. I've been to many of the countries in Africa. As a matter of fact, when 9/11 occurred, I was in Tel Aviv, Israel, that day. And the reason I was there, we were there trying to meet with leaders of the Congo to try and negotiate peace in the Congo. I've been to Israel 3 times. I've met with Israeli leaders. I've met with members of the Knesset. I talked to the Israeli Council General last week. And so, to the extent possible, I'm engaged in some of these international things. But I can't be totally, fully engaged because my main engagement is with things that are going on in America. I don't serve on a foreign affairs committee. I serve on the Ways and Means committee that basically discusses how do you figure out how to pay for the food stamps, how do we pay for the CAJ vouchers, how do we pay for anything that we use. So it's very difficult to exist in isolation from all of these other countries. And I hear people say we have to put our primary focus on America. And I agree with that. But America is involved with all the rest of the world. And what goes on in many of these other countries seriously impacts America. For example, America is very concerned about the impact and influence of China on trade, or Taiwan, where they produce these cells and things that we use to operate our automobiles and our telephones, all of these computers in many instances. And Japan, I've been to Japan, and it's marvelous in terms of the relationship between the United States and Japan, especially given the fact that we dropped 2 atomic bombs on them and killed thousands of their people at one time, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So these things are really pretty complex. I mean, they are more complex sometimes. Sometimes when businesses come in and they'll argue and say, we need to treat these countries, we got as much business going on in Europe as we have in New York or whatever, when they're trying to talk about the amount of taxes they pay, and we talk about tax status and all of it. So it's not easy. But the reason I try and listen as much as I do, because I believe that listening is learning. And the way that I try and understand what people want is to listen to them. And so now I think we will move to Princess Shaw, who's been in a long time trying to get on.
Thank you, Congressman Davis.
Thank you. Yes.
How are you today? How are you, sir?
Go right ahead. I'm good.
Great. how much you know or how much has been shared with you, but there is a long-term recovery group that's being formed in order to assist those that flooded here in Chicago. To the gentleman's point, you have a lot of seniors in your district that flooded. You have no help. You're on sick, and it's very sad. And what I mean by it's very sad is the simple fact, it's not what someone told me. I've been in these basements. I've shared these elders and seniors have shared stories with me about how they've lost everything. So not only have they been traumatized, but then they're being nickeled and dimed by FEMA. And so what I'm asking is that, to the other young man's point, that there needs to be more funding from the federal government in order to assist with these, what's going to be called tear outs and to rebuild these basements again. So I have been working with, outside of your office, the city, FEMA, SBA, and let me speak to SBA as well. It is very unfair, and this is all factual, and please feel free to reach out to me anytime to have a conversation when the federal government is forcing, or SBA, I'm not sure which one it is forcing elders into a 30-year loan that was nothing that was their fault of their own. And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of what someone told me. These are several people, and I've sat down with several seniors where they're like, oh, just take the loan. A 30-year loan for someone that's 60 or 70 is not guaranteed, especially with the black population, of living to 110, 120 to even be able to pay back these loans. And on top of them putting a lien on their property, we really need to have a realistic conversation. And I think someone put in the chat as well as a think tank in order to see how this works and to make it very clear for you. These people, a lot of them, the number that came back, and I'm pretty sure it's 3 or 4 times the number, the accurate number was 1,700 furnaces that were out. 1,700. And that's based upon the number that came from FEMA, and it's around the estimation because of the simple fact they're only allowing people to put in for 1 furnace. And we know in these basements, there's at least 2 or 3 furnaces. And then some of the people that are living in the basements, so the rationale and the systems that are in place, I am begging and imploring you to change these things around, because the way that it's set up is not set up to help anyone. And then for the migrants that are coming in, it's really unfortunate that they're coming in on top of this flooding happening. So until you're able to make people for what they've lived their entire lives for, how can you honestly expect anyone to say, hey, and open up their doors with a welcoming hand to any neighborhood when things have been constantly there's no structure, there's no foundation. And then the foundation that we do have is all from something that was from the 1900s. And from what I'm understanding, all these ordinances, rules, and regulations, it's just really sad. Because then you have to sit here and a person has to decide whether or not they're going to eat and get their basement repaired. And the average basement or roof, because the roofs were damaged as well, is somewhere in the ballpark of $15,000 to $20,000. So how does the SBA loan help anyone? And then they're running their credit, a hard credit score. And then on top of that, they're verifying income. We know all of our seniors are basically on a fixed income. So I just implore you, let's make sure we take a look at it home. There's nothing against migrants or how they work, how they're getting here. I understand that we need help too. But if you can't clean your house before you let a guest come in, I don't know what to tell you.
Let me thank you for your raising that issue. And I was looking for my notes. But the FEMA experts and the people who are experts have been writing out about how amazed they are that FEMA has responded so quickly in Cook County, and billions of dollars have come into Cook County from FEMA based on the flood that we just had, and millions in SBA loans with I wish I had my cheat sheet here in front of me.
I got you.
And there's nothing, let me just finish.
Sure.
Nothing I like in the world more than activists. People who are engaged as you are and involved But even with FEMA, you always got to have money. And the government, here's what FEMA has been telling me that they've done. In Cook County, more than $238 million in Cook County. Individual assistance for $66,921,000. Households over 200 million. Assistance for other needs, 34 million. 71.3 million from U.S. Small Business Administration. Disaster loans approved. Disaster survivor assistance teams visited 62,312 homes. 16,567 people visited 7 disaster recovery centers. More than 331 FEMA staff supporting this effort. And of course, much of that has happened because of the work that people like you, Alderman Mitt, Northwest Austin Council, other people, my staff, myself, I've visited some of those basements myself. And so there's never all the money that we want to have. Money to operate the government comes from tax money. Taxation. I'm saying money does not fall. It comes from the taxes that we pay. I have never had anybody come to my office and say, you know, I really want to pay more income tax. I don't care how rich they are. I don't care how poor they are. I've never had anybody come and say, Danny Davis, I want you to help us pay more taxes. Of course, we try to get most of the tax money that we can from those people who have the most to pay. And we always have a great big fight with what is called Republicans. Anytime we want to tax the 1%, and that is 1% of the people in America, in many instances, earn more money, have access to more money than the other 90% of all the people. The big fight going on right now with the United Auto Workers and General Motors is that the United Auto Workers are cutting at the core of the difference between the rich, the very rich, and the poor people, and the average workers in this country. And the United Auto Workers is saying, give us a bigger share of what is the profit, where you will go to some plant and the owners and one guy might be making as much money as 200 workers. And that's the big elephant in the room that is keeping money, too much money, in the hands of too few people. And the big struggle is between the haves and the have-nots, and trying to more evenly distribute the wealth of our rich nation and the wealth of rich people all over. So the government I'm always amazed when people come to me for donations. I do the best I can. But then I also wonder, I'll be saying to myself, do they know that I don't sell nothing? I don't buy nothing. I'm not engaged in any commerce. So where do they think I get any money from?
Yeah, it's not to say that you have money, but you can't write legislation.
No, I'm talking about the government now. Not
tell you about the city of Chicago has a rainy day fund. Cook County Periwinkle's office, they have money that is untouched that we could possibly reallocate in order to help some of these seniors, as well as that 300 about million that you said that was funneled into Cook County. It does not specifically give you the numbers for the West Side. So that's all I'm saying. If we could just sit down and make it make sense, because like I said, the winter time is coming, and you're going to have a health hazard on your hands. Because with the even though FEMA got here quickly, the different levels of government that need to be working together were not in a timely manner. And within 24 to 48 hours, everyone that has had water in their basement has mold. So that's a realistic conversation that I want to start having, because at the end of the day, we don't want to we already have a bare minimum of seniors that are left anyway. I just want to make sure we hold on to them and hold them as precious gems before they're gone. And something as mold, such as tedious as mold, to have to take them out, that would be really, really bad. And so I just think if we can have a conversation to discuss these funds, because we're not going to even think about the 40 applications I had to go and take down to Maria Pappas' office for seniors that are over 65 that have still been paying property taxes. So let's have a conversation on that level as well to see where those monies are at, because that could help with putting these people's basements back in their lives a little bit back in order. So that's all I'm asking.
And that's actually what I'm saying, but I do believe in the truth. And I do believe, as course going down to Maria Pappas, has done more for taxpayers than anybody who ever looked at being treasurer of the county of Cook. I can't read. If I read all day long, I wouldn't be able to read up on any county treasurer who have even come close to doing what Maria Pappas has done in the county treasurer's office in the district of Cook County.
In order to see if we can get some assistance for these seniors, because some have been
keep the advocacy going.
Yeah, because
I don't know anybody in America that care more for senior citizens than I do.
I know.
If they exist, I want you to find them and bring them to me. And let me see what else we can figure out to do.
Okay, you let me know if you want 200 seniors at your house, at your door, and you let me know when. Because they're
very... love to have them any day.
Okay.
But if they came, they could come and say, right on, Danny Davis, because we know you helped increase the money we got on our Social Security check beginning in January, when they got an 8.7% increase on Social Security, that I am one of the fiercest supporters of Social Security of anybody in the United States of America, and look after to the extent that they can be looked after our senior citizens. That is the group the Republicans are trying to cut and figure out ways to reduce Social Security. The average Social Security check in America is about $20,000 a year. The average Social Security check in my district, the 7th district, is about $10,000. There are many people who receive less than that. And so I'm a big supporter of increasing Social Security. And folks who say they are Republicans, they want to figure out some way to do something else with Social Security to keep up the advocacy. Hey, it works. We just gotta keep at it and keep pushing. But I do want to thank Joe Biden for issuing that resolution that made sure that this money has come into Cook County from FEMA. And we're looking at another bill that it might be possible to get some more money to deal with the migrant issues if we can go the route of emergency needs. And it looks like the city of Chicago is going to have and does have some emergency needs relative to the influx of migrant individuals who are being shipped into Chicago. Keep the advocacy up as soon as we get a speaker. And I know I'm going to be in Chicago. We'd love to sit down and have some more of those discussions. So thank you. Thank you very much. We'll go to Zemaya Todd. Good afternoon. Zemaya. Hi, Congressman, can you hear me? Yes. It's good to hear your voice, sir. I'm going to be quite quick as I possibly can. Undoubtedly, there are numerous challenges, especially financial challenges, affecting our government and our citizens. But there is a looming possible catastrophic event that we fail to address, which is climate change and its impact on historically marginalized disadvantaged communities. An example is what this young lady finished talking about is the flooding that Chicago just witnessed or experienced. My question is, therefore, as it relates to climate environmental crisis in urban communities, there are many piecemeal and scattered approaches, but none target a historic, comprehensive development of historically marginalized disadvantaged communities for clean energy, transformation, development, transportation electrification, and and creating a clean energy or clean tech workforce development for a clean energy economy. Would you support creating, being a part of creating a prototype urban clean energy economic development model? I do support it, but like every conversation that takes place, I am a big fan of a fellow named Frederick Douglass. All right. And of all the economists that I've ever studied or read, I came to understand better in the last few years of my being that Frederick Douglass made a great deal of sense. And Douglass said, there are those amongst us who would profess a love for freedom. But yet,
what does Frederick Douglass have to do with clean energy?
Because people wanted to end slavery. The abolitionists had a lot of things they say they needed to do, could do, this would work. But when it came down to happening, they start backing up. Or when they look at what it would really take. He said that he understood one thing and he did not understand anything else. And that is that in this world, you may not get everything that you paid for, but you most certainly will pay for everything that you get. And so when it comes to figuring out how to pay for affordable housing, there are a lot of things you got to do. But when it comes to doing economic development in certain areas where it's going to take a lot of investment to turn things around. And so there are a lot of people, all of us want things to happen. I want to see economic development. But I can tell you, when I never go up to McDonald's and eat lunch, I ain't helping economic development in the black community. Or when I can't find a black person doing business that I can go and buy myself a pair of shoes from, I am not helping economic development on the west side of Chicago. If I go down to Michigan Avenue to do my shopping, if I can't find a theater in the hood where whatever the revenue is that is generated, none of it stays where I'm at. And so it takes all of those things. It takes all of those things, and it takes a certain kind of advocacy to make sure that those things are happening in a way that we're going to help bring about the change that we're talking about. And I'm saying change comes when we can unify, when we can advocate and organize and keep it moving and keep it going. That's when we get change. And that's really how change comes about. I concur with you, Congressman, but there's some things there's ways that we can make things happen if we just take our time and thought, basically what I'm saying is that we begin to rethink energy usage in urban development communities or disadvantaged communities. There is money there that can initiate the process. And then also, once it's initiated, we can pay back. We're talking about paying money back to the government for the development of what we're talking about initiating. So there's really things that we can do to make things happen. We just have to have a working, willing body to make it happen. I agree wholeheartedly. That's why I am noted as being one of the main advocates of the creation of some called community health centers, federally qualified health centers throughout America. When I started working with them, there were 10. Now there are 1,400. Most of them have budgets of $40 and $50 million a year, spread throughout low-income communities in America. And so being organized, being part of the group, at one time being president of the group, that's why we got 1,400 of those now, as opposed to just the 10 that we had when I started working at the Martin Luther King Center as the director of Eden. Then went over to the Miles Grafton Center and worked as special assistant to the president, and then became president of the national organization. And now we got 1,400 of those, and it's spread throughout the United States of America. And that's economic development. In many of the low-income communities where they're located, they are the main employer in those communities. For example, in my congressional district, the 7th district, the two kind of jobs that exist that employs the most people in the district is health and social service. Health and social service. They're not just hospitals sitting there. Understood. They're hospitals that generate billions of dollars. That's a certain kind of economic development. But of course, obviously, there are many people who don't personally benefit except in healthcare because they don't work at those places. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and thank you very much. And we'll go to Miss Mildred Smith, who's been convey my blessing to Reverend J. Stevens. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman, for having us. I have a question, well, a concern too. I went back, I work in the medical field, but I'm dealing with cancer. So when COVID came, they asked everybody to come back that was able. I went. I get Social Security, my benefit, my Social Security disability. So while we were doing the COVID, it was just, we was learning from it. It wasn't nothing that was book written for the medical doctors. It was something we all learned from. Now, they told us when we went back to work to set up the portal to let them know how much we were making. Now, I'm on an overpayment. Nobody did their job. It sounds like to me. Now they're taking like $150 out of my benefit. That's a lot because I'm swimming in medical debt. I'm buying another insurance because of the cancer that I have. I'm taking for breast and bone. And then I beat some other cancers too. How can you all solve this problem? Because we went back to help out during COVID.
Last week at a hearing that we had on unemployment fraud, where individuals had received money from unemployment during COVID, a lot of people tried to defraud the government. And so they're being caught up to and with, you read about it in the papers, where they claimed they wasn't able to work because of COVID. Of course, those were the greedy. And I always try to help the needy and not the greedy. But I raised the question at the hearing, and the representative was there from the treasurer's office. And oftentimes these are the people that be engaged in setting up the systems and all. And I raised the issue that why can't we take a look at instances where people may have received a benefit they weren't due, but it wasn't their fault. And that maybe we ought to be looking at ways to allow those individuals to not have to pay that back. And the agencies are, in fact, talking about it now, looking at it, and we may be able to do something. So thank you very much for that. It is a consideration. And Tiana, will you take the next question? I need to step out for today.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Let me see. I think Karen has been trying to get on, and I'll try my best to answer your question. Thank you so much, and thank you, Congressman and Smith, for having us and hosting this today. My comments are, everybody who's participated today has shared a different slice of their issues and their concerns, and it's really heartbreaking to hear that so many people who live in our area are struggling with so many diverse and different types of challenges. And what I would like to say is, most respectfully, Congressman Davis, you've been in Congress for a long time, and I know that there have been things that you've been able to accomplish. But what I would like to suggest right now is that Congress and the Senate, you need to secure the border. And the reason I say that is because so many of the problems that I have heard today from people on this call sharing their problems, it all emanates from us spending money on things to try and catch up and fix and solve problems because we are not focused on what we need to do at the border. We all know my family generations ago emigrated to this great country, but they did it lawfully, and they were contributing members of coming here now illegally. I understand that they have issues in their own countries where they are struggling to be safe and to earn a living. But guess what? As we heard today on this call, everybody here is sharing their concerns about being able to pay their bills. Cassandra going to school, keeping at it, trying to pay her student loans, trying to progress. We have housing, we have seniors here who are struggling to pay taxes, to get their basements fixed, flooding, and then, of course, here in Chicago, those of us who have to replace the pipes because we've had lead pipes for all these years. The problems are endless. But until we actually fix a very serious problem and the root cause of the problem, and the problem is we do not have a system in place to handle those people who are coming here who really are in danger. So we don't have enough administrative judges or doing whatever. You know, this country required everybody here to get a COVID shot, but the immigrants who are coming, not only they didn't have to get COVID shots, we don't even know who they are. There's no background checks going on. And as I said in some of my comments, I've had a murder on the corner this past week. I've had a carjacking. I've had a burglary and 2 cars that have broken into, all within a 1-block area. And I know I'm not alone. Everybody on this call has been experiencing the crime. And everybody's experiencing the struggle economically. But I want to say this in all earnestness and with all respect. Congressman Davis, and I know you're on the Ways and Means Committee, and that is one of the most powerful committees there are. So you have a lot of gravitas in Congress. Please tell Congress to stop pushing the ball down the court and actually do something about the problem at our border. And I know that we are so frustrated here in Chicago with getting pushed to the bottom of the barrel because now all our money is going to house, feed, and secure immigrants. Well, honestly, I'm thinking, like, Texas has been doing this for how many years? And nobody said anything about that. Everybody's like, well, let Texas handle it. Let Texas handle it. Now we've had a taste of what that state's been going through, and our mayor and our congressman, everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. Well, yeah, it's got to stop. We have to fix the root cause problem. So I know the election is coming up, and I am going to be watching to see what action is happening from my congressman to resolve this problem. So I thank you for all your years of service, and I think everybody who's been on this call, they've shared some incredible insights and great recommendations, and I am watching to see what the people who are governing us are going to do to really help us. So thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Let me thank you for your comment and for your question. Of course, from a national perspective, one of the biggest issues facing America, our country, is the question of immigration and how we as a nation judges or deal with that issue. Obviously, there are people who try different approaches. President Trump wanted to build a wall. And there were those of us who opposed building a wall at that juncture. Now, President Biden is taking a look at that approach because whatever else it is that individuals have attempted to do, it has not worked satisfactorily. And of course, some of the complexity surrounding the border is what do we do to try and enforce the immigration laws that we have. And If they're not working one way, then the thinkers got to think up and figure up and come up with what else may work or what might be a different approach. Some of the people who want to become far more restrictive than what the country has been are concerned that along with individuals coming into the country, certain kinds of contraband is also coming. That certain kinds of drugs are also coming. And so there are efforts to figure out how to curtail all of this. It may very well be that we'll get back to the idea. And some people are very surprised that President Biden has mentioned a wall. And how will administration or management or whatever that is, how will that work? And how long will it take if we build the wall for that to get done? And what do we do before the wall? And how do we manage all of our resources in such a way that we're not giving short shrift to any of them because we're giving too much to the others? And I agree that there are people who are as frustrated as they can be. But there are also people who are frustrated that poor people who need a place to stay have not had a place to stay. And we're going to provide, and we are trying to provide a place to stay for immigrants when they know other people, especially black people, sleeping under the viaducts and sleeping in abandoned cars like people down the street.
Exactly.
My office. And how do we wrap our arms around all of this and use whatever resources we can generate most effectively, most judiciously, and in the best interest of our whole country? And that's what the challenge is now. And that's what the challenge is. I understand that some members of the city council went down to the border last week. I don't know what they learned that they didn't already know, but I have to assume that they were searching for understanding and hope that they saw or heard or learned something that will give them some more information on what to do. And so I know that Democrats as a whole are seriously trying to find the best solution to the problem at the border, following the lead of those individuals who live in those areas and those members of Congress and other elected people who see enough other issues the same way that we all see them to be able to call ourselves members of a political group that want to work together. And that's why we join the same party or the same group. So that issue has the attention of our party, of our group, and ourselves as individuals. and it certainly has mine. So we will be working to try and arrive at the best solution we can possibly arrive at in our minds, and certainly in the minds of the people who live in the area of the border. So thank you very much, and we will go to Ms. Matthews. Yes, Ms. Matthews, Mr. Matthews.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Congressman Davis. The issue that I wanted to bring today was just education overall. We met prior, and I'm academic advisor in Introspect. My issue is just the overall curriculum. I work at Collins, Ford, and Marshall, and the curriculum and structure is just not aligning with today's society overall. I feel like with CPS, and I know that COVID has played a role in things that's hard to improve or that's not necessarily in our control. But I observe little things like the seniors. I work with seniors majority of the time, and some of them don't know penmanship or just spelling and just ability to do things that they should be capable of doing at their grade level. And just agenda of being pushed to go to college when it can be, I just feel like there should be a balance within trade. So I just want to know how can the skill set development be increased? And like, is there something in the works with that being changed pertaining to the curriculum and the foundation of it?
But you know, there used to be a time and we would measure things that we could do by partisan things. Education, much of my assignment work is in the area of child welfare. And so education is a part of that. Early childhood education is a part of that. One thing that citizens are generally interested in, if they don't display a lot of interest in anything else, they play a lot of interest in education. Although the base funding for education has not been a federal government, it's the extras in education, like certain ESEA title programs, special programs for the disabled, special programs for the disadvantaged, special programs to do special things. Education is real hot now because some elected persons in some places are using education as a big piece of their politics. And I don't usually use that many harsh words, but some of the things that are being proposed about education by the governor of Florida, and some of the most ridiculous stuff I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it's something that you wouldn't believe one in America would have the audacity. Something like Dr. Martin Luther King when he talked about rule of Connor, people with nullification and imposition, that they would have the audacity to let these notions fall from their lips, to say that you cannot teach the history and culture of some people, African Americans, slaves, Negroes, colored folks, whatever they were being called, as a part of the history, as part of the curriculum, to children growing up, so that they would learn something other than the truth. I grew up in the rural South, and we were taught that certain individuals, Robert E. Lee, the Gray Ghost, all of these people were heroes, as opposed to being taught that they were traitors, that they were going against their country. And that's why people like my parents and other folks who didn't get a chance to go to school that much would tell us that if you get educated, nobody, no matter what it is, that they would try to sell you, they wouldn't do that because you know the difference. And so curriculum is very, very important, and it's something that every community, every parent, every interested person needed to be concerned about.
We have 7 minutes.
I taught school at a time when the students that I taught were in inner city, community, street level action. And I discovered if I had them read certain things, they would read it. Certain other things just didn't interest them. But I pulled out Iceberg Slim, stuff like that. And they learned to read. And many of them I run into today at church, on the streets, wherever things are, because they made it. Because we were able to create for them something that interested them where they were. And they are doing just fine. So we've only got 7 more minutes. So 6 more minutes. So let me go. Joey, my neighbor, lives down the street. Joe, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you, Congressman. I'm going to try to be quick. First, I want to say that you would not say this, but I'm going to say this. For everyone on this call, if you've been listening to all of the excellent comments and suggestions, it should lead us all to we're not going to all agree on all of the solutions, but all of us should agree the importance of keeping as our representative someone who has 28 years seniority in the House of Representatives. And if you know how the House of Representatives works, the first few years the person is a congressperson, there's really not a whole lot of influence or power that they have. But we now have a congressman who not only has his heart and his mind in the right place, but also has the power to do something. So I encourage everyone to make sure you vote, make sure you talk to your family and friends, and make sure we keep our congressman to go back to Washington for another 28 years. Now, having said that, I want to make a comment about poverty. The congressman has devoted his life to fighting poverty. And recently, unfortunately, the Republicans blocked the extension of a program that was put in place during COVID, which all of the experts said lifted over 15 million children in our country out of poverty. And the government definition of poverty, it really shouldn't be called poverty. It should be called extreme poverty. And so for the last few years, we've had 15 plus million children who are no longer living in extreme poverty, and now once again they are. That's why we need to have Danny back in there fighting for this. And I'm hoping he can find 5 or 6 decent Republicans to say, look, we can disagree, we can have different ideas, but in this great country, as wealthy as we are, when we've had a program that has worked, and we see that it works, as decent people, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jewish, whatever your religion is, please work with me to get that program put back into place. My second comment has to do with comments the Congressman made about police. I recently had a dinner with a friend of mine who's a policeman, happened to be African American. He's retiring. And he said to me that in his opinion, one of the worst changes in the Chicago Police Department was when they decided to require that you have a college degree in order to be a policeman. He said, now that may seem like it makes sense, but as a matter of fact, being a policeman has more to do with being in the neighborhood and knowing your neighbors and knowing your people. When you require a college degree, it's not like you're going to do brain surgery. It's not like you're going to be a rocket scientist. So he was strongly of the opinion we should go back to the old days where if you have a high school diploma, you would be eligible to be a policeman. So those were the comments I had to make.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your call, and we'll try to get Janet Owen in.
Thank you. I have a request that probably you wouldn't need or even be useful for you to answer right now, but maybe in the future in a newsletter you could address, and that is it would be extremely helpful if we could get more facts about what our current immigration policy is and procedure is. Part of the fear and the overwhelming feeling is not knowing what is going to happen, what has happened. For instance, I know I used to think our borders were completely open in elementary school. They taught us we just welcome people. Well, as an adult, you learn that's not true. We have strict quotas of people from different countries. It would be helpful to know what the quotas are. I also have a vague knowledge, and it would be helpful to have clarification. There's different categories. There are refugees, people whose lives are in danger from war, or particular ones where our country is in some way involved. And then there are categories of people who would like to come here because they're poor, but their lives aren't immediately in danger. And I'd also like to know what our policy is on those. I heard recently that anybody who crosses the border, we are required to allow them to stay here, whereas I thought it was only the people who were refugees for their life who were required to stay here immediately and not send them back to go through the official channels. So I would really just like to know what our policy is, so then I can even have an idea as to what I think might be better or what isn't working. And the last thing along that line would be like, since our immigration is a national policy, is there funding that goes to the border? And now that people are being sent away from the border buses, does that funding follow them? Or was there never any funding, in which case God knows how Texas ever was dealing with it. But if there is funding, then, or if there's structure, like if the federal government is paying for certain processing facilities at the border, and now they're not being used because people are here, can those processing facilities be moved here so that we don't spend local funding on it? That type of thing. Anyhow, that's a long-term thing, and if there is, or if there's an organization that has the effect, maybe in one of your newsletters that you send email, you could say, look to this organization, they have good facts on immigration policy and also even how well it is or is not being enforced. Because I just feel like we're pitting the poorest Chicagoans against the new immigrants because they're fighting for resources, whereas I really feel that the immigration is a federal issue and that our local poverty is in some ways, although in other ways it's national, but in some ways it's local. So we're getting these people who are fighting for the same resources who maybe shouldn't be if we had more information about how federal funding works, with that. So any information you could give us, I feel like I've tried so hard to read books and look at things, and I still don't really have good information. It's very hard to find out what is going on. Thank you. And thank you so much for holding this forum.
Thank you. We'll make sure that we do that. And Mr. Leahy.
Hi. Thank you, Congressman Davis. So I'm the mother. I'm on a little bit different track than other people today. I'm the mother of a severe child with severe autism. And my big thing for him, my husband and I are getting older, and we're really worried about what's going to happen to him after we're gone. And we would request more support for the direct support professionals who take care of people like my son with his severe disability. facilities. They get very low salaries. There's a large turnover. It's hard to recruit them. And some of my ideas I actually got from just listening to people today. I would like to see perhaps for some of them that would be interested a career track, or that they would get their maybe some of their college loans forgiven if they work for a certain time as a direct support professional, or that they could move on into um, get money to go to college to enhance their career, maybe into nursing, which I understand there's a huge nursing shortage too, and also maybe some of the immigrants could become direct support professionals, and that would be a way for them to become immigrants. So, but my main thing is I really want to see support for people like my son, and every life is precious. And I know you're very supportive of objectives like this, Congressman Davis. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention again.
We have a big interest in autism, and we will do a town hall on autism directly, and we'll also look into doing some legislative analysis at what is in existence and look at trying to enhance it in some way or the other. We will do both. Ms. Alina Pryor.
Thank you.
Yes, go right ahead. I think we got, a minute?
We've had only a few people left.
Okay.
So I'm legal permanent resident in the United States, and I'm in a position where I have no rights, and I don't even know how to tell people who are illegal here. So I would like to bring your attention to a problem that exists in Cook County Family Court. It's basically the scale of the problem where children from immigrant mothers are legally kidnapped. I have not seen my son for almost 3 years. I have not had my son. I had no contact with my son for almost 3 years for no reason. The divorce case is completely frozen. That was taken away from me, all my rights, which are parental rights are natural rights. They are human rights. They are in any country. And without no single trial, my son is legally kidnapped from me. And that's been happening to other immigrant mothers. There are we can gather a big group of us, and no one hears us. I've accumulated with state's attorney, no investigation, police, FBI. No one hears us. We are like people without any voice. And this is a huge problem in Cook County. And also, it's a different huge problem, but DCFS, kidnapping children from people, from parents, and of course, in divorce, in family court, in DCFS court, the most susceptible to this issue, the most vulnerable people here, who are minorities, is the Black and immigrants. That has happened to white America, absolutely does. But
tell you what,
yep.
I'm going to suggest that you call us tomorrow, 773-533-7520, and ask to speak to Crystal Overton. And we'll do some research on the issue and call you back with some recommendations and what we found out. You got it? Okay, we'll do that. All right. We'll look forward to it. And we'll take Lisa Jerison.
Can't hear you.
You gotta unmute. just want to say, I just want higher pay. My name ain't Tuck. I ain't even get that out of line. I just wish we get higher pay for the near future for our age. Like I'm 36, everybody know like 30. And that's the only thing we worry about. Is gun violence and high wage. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we'll have some direct information about what people your age group are interested a certain way in. And thank you, Mr. Curtis. No?
Hi. Hello. Yes, hi. My name is Munir Curtis. I'm one of your constituents, and I want to thank you, Congressman Davis, for taking the time to have this forum and to listen to our voices. I just wanted to, I have a request as a constituent who is, I am African American. I was also born Muslim, and I just ask that you bring forth to DC and your fellow congressmen and women the fact that the current situation that is happening against the Palestinian people is one of apartheid. And I ask that this issue, first of all, that the United States request a ceasefire, and that also that the United States cease funding the military of Israel that bombs the Palestinian people. I think there is a conflation between Hamas, bombing of Hamas, and the bombing of the Palestinian people. And I just ask that we change the narrative when discussing about this issue and opening it up. I understand that you have met with people of the Knesset and the people of Israel, but I just ask that we understand
that. I may add, I don't want to cut you off, but I also want to say, and with people of Palestine origin and people from Palestine, I mentioned Israel, but I've even met with Yasser Arafat.
Right. Thank you, sir. And so I just ask that you bring forth to your fellow congressmen a changing of the narrative, in that I think there is a great misinformation with regards to what is happening. I think we are taking the narrative of a very powerful country militarily in Israel, and I think the justification to do preemptive strikes to destroy people, the Palestinian people, is happening. And I don't find that there is a religious justification of anyone to destroy a people. And there are Palestinian Christians and there are Palestinian Muslims. I am an African American United States citizen who is also a Muslim. And I identify with my Black brothers and sisters and my Muslim brothers and sisters. And I ask that when having this discourse, that we listen to both sides from a human point of view, not from a propaganda or political point of view, or I feel like someone might feel like they have a religious right. I think this is a human right that we're dealing with. And the narrative has been framed in a way that does not take into account the humanity and what is right and what is wrong. To kill people in the name of being worried about being bombed is never okay. There must be peace. And I think the United States needs to change its discourse and change its course with regards to supporting apartheid in any country. And I thank you, sir, for your time.
And I thank you, and I thank all of us who have been on, all of us who have participated in this discussion. And I share many of the values that you just expressed. As a matter of fact, I'm a part of several international groups that reach, I guess, discuss peace and believe strongly in peace. And I'm fond of mentioning at some of the meetings two things. One is a portion for whom the bells toll in terms of suggesting that every man's death diminishes me, which means that every person's death diminishes all of us. The poet just said it another way. Every man's death diminishes me. I know for whom the bells toll. They toll for thee. And I end with something that President John Fitzgerald Kennedy said. And he said that peace is not found only in treaties.
Okay, I think that's enough. So I just ended the call. If you are still watching this, I know I started the video kind of like weirdly, but I just got the idea. Let me just say, this was a Zoom meeting for a town hall meeting with Congressman Danny K. Davis. I got an invite through my email. And so to attend the Zoom meeting, so I just thought, why not? Because I've never really attended a town hall meeting before. This is my first time, even virtually. So I've never attended one in person. The only political events that I have ever attended have been the city council meetings that, of course, I've spoken at. But yeah, that was absolutely horrible, by the way. I know he's a Democrat, so I'm guessing the majority of the 40 callers or so that were on that call are mostly Democrats too. But I thought even if they were Democrats, that most of them brought up, legitimate concerns and seemed to know what they were talking about even more than the congressman himself. And it doesn't surprise me, some of the people, some of the voters have more of a grasp on reality than the people that they vote into office, especially when it comes to the Democrats, even some Republicans too. But yeah, that was just horrendous, horrendous town hall meeting. But I don't know, it was kind of informative, I guess. At least I attended just to see, what it's like and what goes on. In the email, it didn't specify exactly what issues would be discussed in the town hall meeting. So, I just kind of like came into it and, just, things were brought up. Mostly immigration. I know education was mentioned, crime was mentioned earlier. Mostly immigration and what else? And the war with Israel and Palestine, or Hamas. So I did not record the first 40 minutes or so of the town hall meeting because like I said, I just got the idea on a whim. As I was listening, I'm like, hey, why don't I record this, my reaction, and then speak at the end of the meeting, because I did not, when I was like registering for the meeting, I decided, I wasn't really going to speak. I was just mostly going to listen and, just to get a feel for what a town hall meeting is like. Um, um, because I think I've watched a few videos of it, but I was actually participating in one. So, yeah. So, I didn't record, but I recorded the majority of it, over an hour. So I got, a good majority. So, I mean, if you guys found it boring or just, and I know you're used to me like talking as I react. And I was just like sitting for most of it and just listening. Because like I said, I didn't when I was registering, I just put my information. I didn't put that I wanted to speak or anything. So yeah, I'm guessing like there were like 5 issues that they wanted the people signing up to like, write down. So I'm guessing like immigration and the Israel Hamas conflict was what most people wanted to talk about during this town hall meeting. So, because that's what was brought up mostly. Sorry, I'm sniffing too. Like I have a runny nose. Um, but yeah, I'm like, okay, let me just, record this. And, because I know I've been recording my reaction to the presidential debates, and I'm going to continue with the other parts of that. I'm like, hey, well, I want to record this too, since, it does have to do with politics, and, I signed up for it. So instead of just like, listening through the whole thing, let me just record my reaction to it. So let me get into my reaction if you're still here with me and listening. I'm going to start with crime because that is the most pressing issue in our city and state right now, regardless of the other issues that were brought up that apparently people think are more important. And they might think the immigration and the war in Israel is more important just because, well, as you heard, like some people who are Muslim or who are some people in this country who are, holding these protests that are anti-Israel and pro-Palestine. So he has some speakers with that mindset on there. I, of course, am pro-Israel and anti-Palestine and anti-Hamas, since they are a terrorist organization. And by the way, it's sad that the congressman, had to clarify that Hamas is indeed not a country. I don't know why he had to like say that. Maybe a majority of Americans think that Hamas is a country, which wouldn't really surprise me because the education system in this country is just getting worse and worse. So the fact that maybe a majority of Americans believe that Hamas is a country instead of a terrorist group doesn't really surprise me. But yes, Hamas is a terrorist group. For anybody who didn't know or who believes that Hamas is a country, they are not. And the fact that some Americans are having these protests that are, and the media that is, painting Israel, Palestine as these victims, when they're the ones, and Hamas are the ones that attacked Israel first, and so of course they're going to defend themselves. And by the way, Israel can hold their own. They have a powerful military. They have a powerful defense system. They really don't need America to step in, even if we are their allies, and we should support Israel, but we shouldn't to the point of thinking about sending troops over there, because wars are expensive, of course, and we're already spending billions of dollars that we shouldn't be spending in Ukraine. So to also try to get involved in another war in the Middle East, and get our troops involved in that, it's just not sure why we're continuing to interfere in other countries' affairs, but that is what is continuing to happen. So now we might be involved in another country's conflict, which is just completely unnecessary. But that's what Congress is focused on right now, unfortunately. And so, yeah, spending billions of dollars on 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 illegal immigrants, on Mexico's issue with their immigrants. We're spending money on that. We're spending money on Ukraine. Now might be spending money on the war in Israel. And it's just too much. We can't afford it, instead of spending money on our own citizens. I've mentioned that before, but it doesn't seem like, the congressman who held this town hall meeting, he is a Democrat, and it seems like, he mentioned in the beginning that, that, the Native Americans, um, we're talking about immigration. Um, I don't remember what he said, but from what he said for the past over an hour, it sounds like he's not really concerned with all of the illegal immigrants being bused from Texas to Chicago, and they're continuing to come in, even though I'm sure many of his constituents who voted for him, and even we're seeing people who are starting to publicly criticize these politicians that are setting up like tents and camps for these illegal immigrants who have nowhere else to go, instead of just saying stop, can't send them here. But again, we can't do that because Chicago is a sanctuary city, so they pretty much did this to themselves. And so it was kind of it was very, not kind of, very hypocritical of Congressman Davis to say, say that they don't have anywhere to go, and that they're trying to look for a better life, and the where they're coming from, there's like a lot of wars and things going on, and they believe they'll get a better life in America. I'm not saying any of that isn't true, but for him to say that and then say, well, we're being overwhelmed with Texas sending illegal immigrants over here, and we can't handle it. Well, I mean, which one is it? Like, do you welcome them, or is it too much of a burden for you? Because can't be both. But yeah, I don't know why. Well, they're continuing to vote for people like Davis and other Democrats and other Congress members who their main priority is obviously not American citizens. Obviously not. Their priority is obviously not getting America back into shape. So, and as for crime, I should have started with crime first. But crime was mentioned at least once. It should have been mentioned a lot more than that, because we're still dealing with that. So the congressman, he talked about, I'm not sure if I got this on camera, but he talked about the family structure needs to be better, which is true. He talked about poverty, which is also the blame for crime. It's also somewhat true. And he talked about getting guns off the streets, especially away from kids. So I agree with all of that, but we need to start with stronger prosecution for these violent crimes. And that starts in the courts. So because law enforcement is doing all they can and being overwhelmed, and then when they're turned over to the courts are just letting them go. They're not completing their sentence. They're getting a slap on the wrist. And then at the end of the day, the victims are, they have to deal with that. So yeah, he didn't mention all of that, but somebody else did. And so I just wanted to expand on that, because that's where we can start. Yes, it's good parenting, and people getting off the streets and being productive, getting jobs, doing something with their lives, and getting guns out of the wrong hands. It's all of that, but we also need to focus on the court's responsibility for getting violent criminals off the streets. Because that's where they're falling short. That's where they're falling very short, and that's where they've fallen short for a very long time. So that needed to be addressed by him too, and it wasn't no surprise there. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up, and also, what else? So yeah, another issue is the homelessness and mental illness. That's another big issue along with crime. That wasn't brought up at all in this meeting. If I were to speak, I would have definitely brought that up. So that also needs to be addressed. As far as the immigration issue, now I know they talked about some of the border policies, um, President Trump's policy of remain in Mexico, and that's what Biden has done since he got into office for the past 4 years. Is he's just he undid all of the essential border policies of his predecessor, President Trump. He undid all of that, so now that's why we're seeing the issues that we are now. He undid the Remain in Mexico policy. He stopped funding for the border wall, and now we are being overrun. We really are. So he's to blame too, Biden. You know, if he didn't do all of that, then if we closed our border, then we wouldn't be having these issues. So you know, Davis wants to complain about, you know, how overburdened we are with all of these illegal immigrants coming in, but you know, on a national level, what Biden is doing is trickling down to the local level over here, because now you know the states have to, you know, deal with this aftermath, deal with these consequences, because what Biden is doing at the federal level, at the executive branch level. So yeah, and then Democrats like him are most likely supporting it, so that's not helping. So he's really not trying to help with that as much as he claims he is. So you know, if I were to have spoken during the meeting, that's what I would have said. But I'm saying it here on YouTube, as I always do. So we're going on 2 hours. This is probably the longest video that I've ever recorded. I am going to stop it here. That's pretty much all I had to say. I mean, you saw me looking off to the side. I was taking notes on what was being said, on what the congressman said, and what the people were saying who were calling in or to the meeting. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to attend another one of at least his town hall meetings. Not to say I won't never attend a town hall meeting, but for Danny K. Davis, I don't know if I'm going to attend one of his town hall meetings virtually or in person. Or I don't know. Maybe I might attend it, and if I do, I might, you know, call and actually like speak, even if it's just for a few seconds. I don't know. But if I do, I'll definitely record it, my reaction to it. But yeah. I'm just, you know, did this on a whim pretty much. So I hope everybody who's watching enjoyed it. And then I'll see you in the next video, which is probably going to be the remainder of my reactions to the debates. I might continue with that tonight. We'll see, because I got to run out. When I get back, I might do it. But that's it for now.